All right, I want to first get my camera in position here over the Magic Eye tube, and I'm going to tune the receiver. And you can see when you wait. Oh, this is out of sync. Hold on. You can see it when you tune it in through the front to the crystal reference oscillator. Now let me turn this off, just in case I touch something. There's a crystal module in here, and in this case the guy bodged it by stealing that and putting in some off-the-wall crystal. That's to calibrate the front dial, to make sure that the calibration is good. By changing this crystal, it doesn't change the frequency of the transmitter. That's done by the front knob. There's a VFO on this transmitter, and you can vary it anywhere from 3 megacycles to 6, 3 megacycles to 4, 3 megacycles to 4. And you're not allowed in there unless you have an advanced license. You can't use the VFO. If you're a beginner, you're going to have to make an oscillator module that uses a crystal that plugs in the place of this oscillator tube. Okay? That's the first hurdle. If you're thinking about getting one of these transmitters to start out with, you're going to have to make a crystal controlled oscillator for this transmitter. Now, the next hurdle is repairing it. What's missing? All right? And in some cases, it may come with some bad tubes. Will you be able to troubleshoot that? Now, there's a front mechanism, like a clock mechanism, or a set of gears for the tuning. Guaranteed, that's going to be, all the grease is going to be locked up. You're going to have to take that apart and clean it. You're going to break the calibration. You're going to have to know how to recalibrate the transmitter. All right? Before you get to that, notice I got all kinds of power supplies here. This transmitter, for correct operation, needs 500 volts DC for the plates of the output tubes, the transmitter output, power output tubes. It needs 250 volts adjustable for the screens. And then it also is going to need 24 volts AC to light the filaments. Now you can rewire the filaments for 12 volts, all right, if you know how to do that. And there are some other mods you can do. But if the power supply needs to be 500 volts, regulated. If it's not regulated, you'll get chirping when you key the unit. It won't be bad, but when you regulate the unit, the chirping will be much lower. And the chirping is caused by when you first key your Morse code key, the oscillator comes on and off, and the voltage from the output tubes goes down. The output tubes draw a lot of current, and that causes the voltage to drop, and that causes the oscillator to shift, and that causes a chirp in your transmitting signal. Now, there are ways around it. You could put some regulator, they call them, they're like glow tubes or neon bulbs, in the oscillator section, and keep the oscillator on and only turn the power output tubes on and off by the screen or by the cathode, whichever method you want to use. But that's going to require knowledge, reading, and the ability to do it, okay? So as a beginner, without anybody helping you, this is a very bad purchase. I'm going to tell you right now, you know, I don't have a ham license, okay? What's holding me back is the code, and I know you don't need code, but that's what I want, okay? I don't want a license and talk like it's a powerful CB radio. I want to learn code. I have dyslexia, attention deficit disorder. My mind drifts really bad. And little by little, I've been working on the code. And I have 3 projects: learning the code, figuring out how to make a power supply for this thing out of stuff I can buy now, and then getting this thing working. Now, you saw the last video, I put the roller inductor on there because one of my units was missing the roller inductor. Then I bought a unit with the roller inductor, but that thing's been sitting in a damp basement, so everything on that is all fuzzed up with aluminum oxide, and it's just been in a damp cellar. And the back connector is bodged. The relays are missing out of it. It's half of an article. I started looking at what the guy did to it, and then realizing that he did some of what the article did. He rewired the filaments so they're 12 volt instead of 24. And then he got confused in one section where the roller inductor was because he broke a screw. And then he started cutting wires all around this coil here. So unless you know all this, don't buy one of these, okay? And the other thing is, if you're going to get into ham radio, I'm going to tell you, buy an inexpensive QRP rig, low power receiver and transmitter, just to practice with until you're sure you want to be in the hobby. Don't jump on buying a bunch of old vintage equipment, even like an old Heathkit transmitter. A Heathkit transmitter, the amateur ones, would be a novice transmitter back in the old days. When I used to go to flea markets, they were $20 each, and if you talk nice to the guy, he'd probably give it to you for free. Okay, now they're $300. Okay, because everybody wants to relive the past. There are people like me that always wanted to get their ham license, and that's what they're doing. Okay, and they want to have the transmitter that they couldn't afford when they were younger. Now, in my case, I always had a problem with the code. So I went into shortwave listening, repairing radios, repairing televisions, repairing stereos, test equipment for people. I went into just repairing everything, got a job repairing, started building digital clocks when they were new, digital thermometers, fax machines, all kinds of stuff, rather than go the ham route, okay? But I just wanted to show you, you know, when you buy one of these transmitters, like one of them, the glow tube's real weak, and one of them, this oscillator tube's bad, and then one of them didn't have the original calibration crystal. Guy stuck something in, okay? That's what you're going to run up against, and you can't see it in the pictures. I can't stress that enough. And yes, if you got a lot of knowledge, and you got a lot of patience, and you haven't spent a lot of years like me, day in and day out, being in electronics, these can be quite fun. Okay, even the fact that if you go to unwire the filaments back to 24, that could be quite a lot of fun. Just the way the guy runs it, you know, the wires, and in a lot of cases they rewire the filaments. They start doing the other modifications, you know, cut out the relays. There's one resistor that's across the filament of the Magic Eye tube. They take that out for some reason. And I was looking at it, I was like, this guy really went nuts. And what he did was he gutted stuff that he probably shouldn't have gutted. Then he got confused, and then he got really confused up at the front end. So, you know, I did get the oscillator section to work on both of them. And the one was driving me crazy. Then I remembered, oh, I know what's wrong. The one unit I had was set up for 12 volts, and then when I switched back to my 24 volt unit, I forgot to increase the voltage to 24. So I was having trouble getting my oscillator on my good unit to work. But, you know, it is sort of fun. It keeps me busy. The other thing that's really gone wrong here is right now it's almost 50 degrees out there. I just went and walked around the entire neighborhood and picked up the baby diapers. Whenever people visit on holidays, they change the baby in the car so it won't stink up the house. And then they wrap up the diaper real nice and leave it in the gutter for me. And I walk around my neighborhood and I clean that stuff up. Because if you don't clean up all the Newport boxes, the soda bottles, the water bottles, the baby diapers, the food, pizza boxes, it gets really bad. I mean, really bad. I had a guy get me so mad a few years ago. He said, this neighborhood's not dirty. Look how clean it is. That's because I was cleaning it. All right? That's how stupid the guy was. I was saying I was cleaning. Oh, you don't have to clean this neighborhood. It stays clean on its own. So I stopped cleaning for a few months. And everybody's coming to me, John, you're not cleaning the neighborhood? Oh, it looks like hell. I said, well, yeah, I had some guy tell me that we don't need to clean the neighborhood. And then they went after him. They sort of stuck it to him. And then he's like, he just shut up because he was wrong. I was cleaning the neighborhood up. And I go out anywhere from every 3 days to once every Sunday. Today's Sunday. Sunday morning I walk around and I pick up all the garbage that's from over the weekend at night. People walk around at night when it's warm and they throw their water bottles down on the ground. And, you know, in certain spots, it gets really bad. And then there's certain bushes they like to throw the stuff behind, you know. But it is what it is. But it's been so warm, I'm not trapped in the house. Now the plan was to learn code. I've got half the letters and not numbers, half the letters done. Learn code, learn to be able to hear it and copy it. Transmitting is easier than copying. Oh, anyway, for me. So I have all these things planned that when I get snowed in, well, it's super warm out. There is no snow. It's not raining out. The sun is out. And I end up going for a walk or walking over to the dollar store, or, and then I do work on this thing. Don't get me wrong. Every day I do a couple tests, and I was testing out certain things, and I was curious to see if I could get this crystal to work. These come apart. These are pretty cool. You undo those 3 bolts. Let's call them bolts and nuts. And then there's like a little spring in there, and there's a piece of crystal. And the crystal usually has plating on each side. It's a piece of piezo crystal, some type of quartz, and it's actually a rock. And they actually grind it down real thin, and then they plate it on each side with like silver. And then there's a spring on each side that makes the contact. And when this hits the right frequency, it actually vibrates. You can't hear it. I don't know if you could feel it. I never grabbed one while it was vibrating. Anyway, but this is 3.54 kilocycles, and our kilohertz is the way to say it. This is close. It's supposed to be. This is an actual real one. This is an actual calibration one, and this is 3.5 kilohertz. And the person stole that. I tell you, that's what they do when they sell on eBay. They steal it and they stick something like this in there, and you won't know the difference unless you stay with it for a while and learn the steep learning curve, and then you're going to say, that guy bodged it. Where's my crystal calibration crystal? Where is it? Well, it's in a unit that he sold for $75 instead of $40. And I thought I would get lucky buying from this club, and they're just as sneaky as everybody else. And like if you're not happy with it, just send it back. Well, what if it's $20 to mail it back? You're not going to get that, and they get to sell it again to the next sucker, maybe for even more money. It's not a great deal buying something big and heavy on eBay, or e-dumpster as I call it. And but I just want to show you, that tube working. And I have 300 volts on this. At 500 volts, that will close. Okay. At 150, it'll barely move. But you need 500 volts DC regulated. Oh, at 200 milliamps. Okay. That means that transformer is going to be as big as that one I showed you, okay? And they're expensive. They're very rare because they only went in some of the top Hammond organs to come from. So when you buy one of these, remember, the power supply don't come with it. I showed you how to make a power supply for the command radios. That's actually a pretty cool deal, but you still have to recap. And don't forget the front end of a command radio. There's a gear mechanism in there with the capacitors. That in some cases is going to seize up on you, and you're going to have to take that radio apart and oil that, okay? And the best thing is to clean it and oil it before it seizes up on you. But these things are a lot of fun if you have the knowledge. If you're a beginner, stay away from it. Get yourself, if you want a ham license, or you have a ham license, now you want to learn code, get yourself a QRP rig on eBay, Chinese made, whatever it is, and then get yourself a code key. And get a friend that's close by and practice with him. And rather than buying something you're never going to finish, I put this thing aside several times already. If I can't learn code, then I take this to the point where I transmit into a dummy load, and then check out all the waveforms with the scope and everything like that. Okay, I have things I can do to stay busy, but what's happened now? I told you the weather has been too warm. And I can walk right now. I can go outside. The sun right now. The sun is out, and it's getting close to 50 degrees. It's great out there. I mean, that's my kind of weather for walking. So my dream was to get snowed in, and to sit there and learn the code, finish this up, get my license, and then transmit. And then there are frequencies you can be on as an amateur or a beginner. It's a novice, I believe. A technician is the first level. Anyway, you can transmit on 80 meters on certain frequencies. Okay, but you got to know what you're doing one way or the other. And but I was like, If I can't learn the code, this whole thing. But I've gone. This is the last thing in life on my bucket list. So I keep coming back to it because it's on my bucket list. Okay. Now a lot of you probably have bucket lists of things you always want to do. You didn't get to do it. And I said one time to an old guy, I've done everything, almost everything I wanted to do. He says, "You're crazy. Nobody gets it." I did. I stayed single. I spent all my free time achieving all the goals I set for myself. All right. I've been published in a magazine. Okay. I set up a website. I sold a product. I did everything I ever dreamed about, and that's the way it is at this point. On one of my patents, I got actually with John Deere, but they closed up that section. I actually come up with a design of something, wrote it all up, went for the patent with them. We send registered letters back and forth, and then at the last minute, they had a big layoff. They sent everything to Mexico. So I never pursued that. But I went really far into getting something patented, an idea I had to improve their equipment. And it was pretty interesting stuff. But everything I ever thought of doing, getting published, doing a patent, I've done it. Okay, and just to understand it, and it's been a long journey. What I did wrong, I always tell you, is I started fixing stuff for people for free. That's a mistake. They distract you with their nonsense. They gamble away or they drink heavily with their money, and then they want you to fix everything for them for free because they don't have any money left over from smoking, drinking, and gambling, and chasing women. And yeah, I learned that's the one lesson. If I went back and lived my life over again, when I come home from work, I wouldn't touch anything. I used to come home from work and my mother had stuff on the kitchen table. Oh, so-and-so dropped this by, one of her girlfriends. So my father would bring home stuff from work. I'd fix it. We'd split half. He charged the guy and then we'd split the money. But yeah, people always bring stuff over. My sister, my brother-in-law. It was like, I'm supposed to do that. They didn't have to do anything but sit, smoke, and drink. And they didn't gamble, though. I think that's it. All right, that's it.